Welcome back to the R&B News Report. Before the break, I mentioned the rock and roll musician Ted Nugent and the interview he had with Piers Morgan. And as everybody knows, Piers Morgan's central theme seems to be anti-gun. And it's ironic that somebody who comes from England is coming over here to counsel us about the need to do away with the Second Amendment, and that's what the bottom line is. Piers Morgan is a leftist. If you've ever paid any attention to his news broadcasts out of England, he is straight out leftist. Now, Ted Nugent, I remember growing up listening to Ted Nugent's music when I was a mere teenager, and I've liked his music ever since. He's a brilliant musician and certainly has the endurance, more so than many of the rock musicians that I remember from my teenage years. And in addition to that, Ted Nugent is a patriot. He speaks out in defense of the Second Amendment, and as well as the Constitution itself. And like myself, he appreciates the founding fathers of our country. And the problem is that in this country is that we don't have more outspoken people like Ted Nugent. And the wonderful thing about Ted Nugent is he's one of us. He is just a common, ordinary person, just like me, just like a million or so others of us across the country, who is outspoken and sees what is happening to his country. And as well as many other people, but Ted Nugent, because he is a well-known celebrity, it's beneficial to the cause of patriotism to have Ted as outspoken as he is, Ted Nugent. And there should be more people in celebrity status who will speak out. I know that there's a lot of them out there. Many of them have come forward and are speaking out against the Obama administration, against tyranny and dictatorship, which Obama represents. And but Ted Nugent seems to be taking a lot of the news reports lately because of his outspokenness, and that's very commendable. I've never met Ted Nugent, but it would certainly be an honor to one day meet him. He apparently lives in Texas and has a farm and homestead in Texas. The left-wing media seems to be trying to draw Ted in for interviews, such as Piers Morgan did, in an effort to try to make American gun owners, those of us who support the Second Amendment, they're trying to deliberately make us look like a bunch of buffoons, a bunch of rednecks, a bunch of hillbillies, and Ted pretty much chews them up and tears them up in the interview. The left-wing media is not as familiar with the Constitution as we are. Or they are familiar with the Constitution. They know it and understand it very well, but they want to do away with the Constitution because the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is standing in the way of the left becoming a tyranny and dictatorship, which is the ultimate goal of the leftists. I've spoken many times in public audiences at universities, civic groups, and various establishments, organizations around the country, in which I point out that I remember quite well when I was in university, and I dated a girl who was a left-wing radical. And, of course, I was only 18 years old at the time. And when you're 18, you're not really aware of as much about politics as when you're 30 years old. Somebody said that when you're 18 years old, if you're not a liberal, then you don't have a heart. But when you're 30 years old and you're not a conservative, then you don't have a brain. And that's pretty well put. It takes a while of working, paying your taxes, struggling to pay a mortgage, to get ahead in life, to finish college. And then when you're on the work scene, gradually, most of us become more aware of the left and the right. I became aware of the leftists early on because this woman that I had dated in university had drugged me to one of her communist meetings, and which turned out to mainly be just a strategy meeting on how to disrupt the system. In other words, if they were protesting or picketing some conservatives speaking at a university, then their training and strategy plan was to how to go about disrupting the lecture or the speaking engagement, thus denying somebody else their constitutional rights, which is the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of the press. So the leftists are absolutely everything about stripping us of the Constitution, including the Second Amendment. They step forward with this hypothesis about society being a safer place if we just got rid of the guns. Well, that's about it. That's nonsensical. Anybody who has studied the crime reports available from the FBI knows that you take guns away from law-abiding citizens who merely want to protect themselves, their home, their property, and their country, then you are basically giving free license to the criminal element to prey upon the innocent population of law-abiding citizens. This has been proven time and time again. And so the argument of the left is totally discreditable. So strip it all down to why they want to take away our guns. Why do they want to make it so that we have nothing more than little... They might as well go all the way and just try to say, well, if you want to go hunting, which, by the way, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting, but the leftists try to twist it so that it does. If they can get you, the listener or the debater, to acknowledge that the Second Amendment is about hunting, well then all that we will be able to own and possess are black powder rifles, because I go hunting with a black powder rifle. It's a 50 caliber, what's called ball and cap, and it is a wonderful rifle to have in hunting. But the Second Amendment is actually there so that we, the people, can eliminate and do away with a tyranny, a dictatorship, should it ever take over this country. And it's also there in case the Chinese or the Russians or Islamic fundamentalists want to try to take over the United States, then we have a fighting chance. Strip away our, what you leftists call the assault rifles. Take those away from us, then we don't have a fighting chance. And guess what, liberals? Eventually, it'll get to you. Eventually, because as in Chicago and New York and most of the liberal leftist cities, you are vulnerable. Except if you're a college professor or some politician, you have security. But the common Joe like me and Ted Nugent and the other millions of people across this country who are not entitled to the security guards, armed security guards that you have, well, we are left to fend for ourselves. And the only way that we can protect our family is with guns. So thank you, Ted Nugent. If you ever listen to this video, thank you for your outspokenness and your patriotism and your defense of the Second Amendment. And to the leftists, the hell with you. We no longer listen to you. We no longer give you credit for being competent, because we know what your ultimate goal is. History does not lie. All we got to do is read history and find out exactly what you're all about. We're going to take this commercial break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.